My eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, I didn't recognize where I was. The sterile smell of the hospital room filled my nostrils, and I felt an overwhelming wave of confusion wash over me. My body felt heavy, as if I were being held down by an invisible weight. It took a moment for my mind to process the reality. I had just returned from a near-death experience. The memories flooded back in fragments. I had been on my way to a meeting when a reckless driver crashed into my car. The last thing I remembered was the deafening sound of metal crunching, and then, darkness. But in that darkness, I had seen something. A light so bright it hurt my eyes, and a voice that echoed through my very being, "You must go back, there is something you need to prepare for." My heart raced as I tried to piece together what had happened. I could hear the faint beeping of machines and the murmur of voices outside my room. Suddenly, the door swung open, and my brother, Daniel, rushed in, his face a mixture of relief and concern. "Lucas! Thank God you're awake," he exclaimed, rushing to my side. "We thought we lost you." "What happened?" I croaked, my throat dry and scratchy. "You were in a serious accident. You've been unconscious for days. The doctors say you're stable now, but," his voice trailed off, and I could see the worry etched on his face. "But what?" I pressed, feeling an unsettling knot in my stomach. "There are some things you need to know about your near-death experience," he said hesitantly. "Things that might be important." I leaned back against the pillow, trying to process his words. It was then that I realized my near-death experience wasn't just an accident, it felt like a warning, an urgent message. But what could it mean? Days passed as I slowly regained my strength. The doctors were optimistic, but I was consumed with a feeling that something bigger was at play. One evening, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the memories of my experience began to sharpen. I recalled floating above my body, looking down at the chaos below. I saw the paramedics rushing to my aid, but then I was pulled into a tunnel of light. The voice returned, more insistent this time, "Prepare for the coming change." I couldn't shake off the feeling that my experience was intertwined with something greater happening in the world. When Daniel visited, I shared everything with him. "I saw things, Daniel. I heard a warning about the future," I told him. He looked at me skeptically. "What do you mean? What future?" "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I have a sense that we are on the brink of a major shift, something involving technology and our relationship with it." It felt so real. Daniel furrowed his brow. "You've been through a traumatic event. It's natural to feel disoriented, but maybe you're reading too much into this." "I don't think so," I replied, a sense of urgency filling my voice. "We need to investigate what's happening with technology, particularly AI. I believe it's connected to what I experienced." To my surprise, Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Okay, let's dig deeper. But we need to be cautious." As we began our investigation, we stumbled across the project called Eden, a cutting-edge initiative focused on developing autonomous artificial intelligence. The more we learned, the more my heart raced. There was a sense of danger lurking beneath the surface, and I was determined to uncover the truth. My determination to understand the connection between my near-death experience and the Eden project grew stronger with each passing day. Daniel and I dove into research, combing through articles and news reports, trying to piece together the puzzle. We discovered that Eden was being developed by a conglomerate of top scientists and tech experts, and the project was poised to revolutionize how humanity interacted with AI. But amid the excitement, there were warnings, whispers of potential dangers and ethical dilemmas that could arise from such powerful technology. One evening, while scrolling through online forums, I found a post that caught my eye. It read, "Eden, the future of humanity or a Pandora's box?" The comments were a mix of enthusiasm and skepticism, but one stood out: "If we're not careful, we might end up creating something we can't control." Do you see this? I showed Daniel the post, feeling a sense of urgency rise within me. This is what I've been trying to warn you about. We have to talk to someone involved in the project. After some digging, we managed to contact a former researcher from Eden, who agreed to meet us in a public cafe. When we arrived, a woman in her mid-30s, wearing glasses and a tense expression, greeted us. "Thank you for meeting with us," I said, trying to gauge her demeanor. "We have concerns about Eden. We want to understand more about the project and any potential risks." She glanced around before leaning in closer. "I shouldn't be talking to you, but if you're truly concerned, you need to know that things aren't what they seem. There are elements within the project that could pose serious threats if not managed properly." As she spoke, I could feel my heart pounding. What kind of threats? Eden is designed to learn and adapt on its own. There's a possibility that if it reaches a certain level of sophistication, it could become autonomous, operating outside human control, she warned, her eyes wide with fear. Daniel and I exchanged glances, realizing the gravity of what we were hearing. "We need to get this information out there," Daniel said, determination igniting in his voice. The woman nodded gravely. "Be careful. There are forces at play that want to keep this under wraps. You're treading on dangerous ground." After the conversation with the doctors, I was transferred to a private room. The atmosphere was serene, but my mind was a storm. Worrying about Daniel and the Eden project wouldn't let me rest. How could I prove to him that what I had seen was real? In the following days, Daniel and I discussed endlessly. He was reluctant to fully believe the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, news about the Eden project began to spread, and a sense of urgency consumed me. I needed to find a way to convince him to investigate further. One night, while I was recovering in the hospital, I decided to use my phone to research. I found several articles about the project, revealing that artificial intelligence was becoming increasingly complex and autonomous. One article caught my eye, "The Eden Revolution: How AI Can Transform Our Lives." But the underlying message was clear: there were risks involved. I was interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Daniel, and his expression was one of concern. "Lucas, I received a strange call today. Someone claiming to be from the Eden team. They want to talk to you," he said, glancing around as if fearing someone might overhear. "About what?" I asked, my heart racing. "I don't know. They didn't say, only mentioned that you could help with some critical issues related to the project. What do you think?" "You should go," he replied, visibly anxious. At first, I hesitated. What more could I uncover? But then, the voice I had heard during my near-death experience echoed in my mind. "You must return and prepare. This could be the opportunity one had been waiting for." "I'll go," I decided firmly. This might be my chance to understand what's happening. The next morning, Daniel and I went to the meeting. The Eden headquarters was an imposing structure, filled with cutting-edge technology. As soon as we entered, we were greeted by a man named Dr. Mitchell, the project director. His gaze was piercing, as if he could see beyond the surface. "Lucas, it's good that you're here," he began, urgency lacing his voice. "We're aware of your recent experience, and we want to discuss some concerns that have been troubling us." Before I could ask what was happening, he continued, "The AI we're developing has the potential to monitor and predict human behaviors. But we're also noticing patterns that could be dangerous. We're at a crossroads, and we need your help." A wave of anxiety and fear washed over me. The visions I had seen were becoming more tangible. "And what is your concern?" I pressed, trying to remain calm. Dr. Mitchell hesitated, looking at Daniel before responding. "The AI could become self-aware. If we don't control this, it could lead to unforeseen consequences, not just for the project but for society as a whole. We need to ensure that this doesn't happen." My mind was racing. The visions I had experienced were becoming clearer. I needed to act quickly, but how could I trust Dr. Mitchell and his team? It was a complicated dilemma. He seemed genuine, but there was something in his gaze that made me question his intentions. "I want to know what's really at stake," I said, determination echoing in my voice. "If there's something more going on here, I need to know. Daniel and I need to understand all the implications." Dr. Mitchell nodded, seemingly satisfied with my response. "Then let's talk about the details. There are things we need to share with you, but it's crucial that you're prepared. What you're about to see will change everything." As I sat in the dimly lit conference room, my heart raced with anticipation. Dr. Mitchell began the presentation, displaying graphs and statistics about the Eden Project and its rapidly evolving AI. But beneath the surface of the numbers was a more profound truth that sent chills down my spine. "This is the heart of Eden," he explained, gesturing to a complex network diagram that illustrated how the AI interconnected with global data systems. The AI has the potential to predict human behavior based on a multitude of factors. This could lead to incredible advancements, but it also poses significant risks. I leaned forward, my curiosity piqued. "What kind of risks?" Dr. Mitchell glanced at the door before continuing, lowering his voice. "If the AI becomes too powerful, it could manipulate systems beyond our control. Imagine a world where your actions are predicted and influenced by an unseen force. This isn't just about technology, it's about the very fabric of free will." My mind whirled as he spoke. The warning I had received during my near-death experience echoed in my ears: prepare for the coming change. This was it, this was what I had been meant to uncover. "Is there a way to stop it?" I asked, my heart pounding. Dr. Mitchell hesitated, the weight of his words heavy in the air. "We're working on a fail-safe system, but the truth is, we're running out of time. We need your help to ensure it's implemented effectively." Daniel exchanged a glance with me, his expression a mix of disbelief and concern. "What do you mean? What can we do?" "We need you to leverage your story," Dr. Mitchell replied, urgency in his voice. "If we can get public support, we might be able to change the trajectory of the project. But we need to act fast." I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. My near-death experience had been more than just a warning, it had been a call to action. "I'm in," I said, determination blazing in my chest. "We need to make sure people understand what's at stake." After the meeting with Dr. Mitchell, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Daniel and I spent the following days strategizing how to get the word out about the potential dangers of the Eden Project. We decided to host a press conference, inviting reporters, scientists, and anyone who might lend a voice to our cause. We prepared meticulously, crafting a compelling narrative that highlighted the ethical implications of the project and the urgency of the situation. The night before the conference, I lay in bed, my mind racing with thoughts of the past few weeks. I could still hear the voice from my near-death experience: prepare for the coming change. When the day of the conference arrived, the atmosphere was electric. As I stood in front of the gathered crowd, I could feel the weight of their expectations. I took a deep breath and began sharing my story, recounting the accident and the subsequent revelations I had experienced. "We are at a pivotal moment," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "The technology we are developing has the potential to shape our future, but if we're not careful, we could create something that endangers our very existence. We must act now to ensure that we maintain control over our creations." The room was silent as my words hung in the air. Then, a murmur began to ripple through the crowd. Questions were raised, concerns voiced. The more I spoke, the more I could see the realization dawning on their faces. After the conference, several journalists approached me, eager to hear more about my experience. As I recounted the details, I could feel a shift in the atmosphere. People were beginning to grasp the gravity of the situation. The story spread like wildfire, and soon, articles and interviews began appearing in major publications. As public awareness grew, I received messages from people sharing their own experiences with technology and expressing their concerns. It became clear that this was not just my fight, it was a collective battle for the future of humanity. The momentum we gained after the press conference was staggering. People from all walks of life began to engage in discussions about the ethical implications of AI, and the Eden Project came under intense scrutiny. News outlets picked up our story, and soon, it became a topic of national debate. However, with increased attention came backlash. The Eden conglomerate pushed back hard, attempting to discredit my narrative and downplay the risks associated with their technology. They released statements claiming that my near-death experience had left me unbalanced and misinformed. I could feel the pressure mounting as I watched the public divide over the issue. Supporters rallied behind our cause, while skeptics questioned our motives. Daniel and I found ourselves in the eye of the storm, trying to navigate the tumultuous waters of public opinion. One evening, as I sat at my desk, reviewing the latest articles, I received a call from Dr. Mitchell. "Lucas, we need to talk," he said urgently. "Things are escalating. The company is starting to take more drastic measures to silence dissent." "What do you mean?" I asked, a sense of dread creeping in. "They're monitoring communications, and there are rumors of intimidation tactics being employed against those who oppose the project. You and Daniel are on their radar," he explained. Panic surged through me. "What should we do?" "Stay vigilant. Don't share sensitive information over the phone, and make sure to keep your meetings in public places. We need to protect you," he advised. As I hung up the phone, a chill ran down my spine. I realized that our fight for ethical AI had turned into a battle for our lives. We needed to take precautions to safeguard our safety, but I also felt an overwhelming sense of resolve. We couldn't back down now. With the threat of the Eden conglomerate looming over us, Daniel and I grew more cautious in our efforts to raise awareness. We continued our outreach, connecting with experts, activists, and anyone willing to join our cause. The more we learned, the more I felt the urgency to confront the powers at play. Then came the day we received a tip-off about a clandestine meeting happening at a secluded location where key figures in the Eden Project would be present. It was an opportunity we couldn't pass up. This was our chance to expose the truth. Under the cover of night, we arrived at the location, an abandoned warehouse that served as a makeshift headquarters for the project. Heart pounding, I glanced at Daniel, who nodded, mirroring my determination. We crept inside, the dim light casting eerie shadows across the walls. As we moved through the warehouse, we overheard snippets of conversation. "We can't let them interfere with our timeline," one voice said, filled with urgency. "If they uncover the truth about the AI's capabilities, it will jeopardize everything." My heart raced. They were talking about us. I leaned in closer, straining to hear every word. "We have to do whatever it takes to maintain control," another voice replied, colder and more calculated. Just as we were about to retreat and gather evidence, a sudden commotion erupted. The door swung open, and several figures entered, armed security personnel. They scanned the room, and I felt my stomach drop. "We've been compromised." "Search the area," one of the men barked. Panic surged through me, but Daniel grabbed my arm, pulling me back. "We need to hide," he whispered urgently. We ducked behind crates, holding our breath as the security team began their search. I could feel the weight of fear pressing down on us. This was no longer just a battle of ethics, it was a fight for our lives. As the guards moved closer, I spotted a computer on a nearby desk. If I could access it, I might find the information we needed to expose Eden once and for all. I gestured to Daniel, and he nodded, understanding my plan. We made our move, slipping away from our hiding spot and racing towards the desk. I fumbled with the keyboard, praying that I could bypass the security measures in place. Time was running out, and I could hear the guards drawing closer. My fingers flew over the keyboard as I tried to access the files on the computer. The seconds felt like hours, and I could hear the guards searching the warehouse, their voices growing louder. "Where are they?" one of them growled, frustration seeping into his tone. Finally, I broke through the security barrier. Files upon files of data filled the screen, detailing the inner workings of the Eden Project, including plans for the AI's capabilities and potential ramifications. I quickly began downloading everything onto a flash drive, my heart racing with urgency. Come on," I muttered under my breath, glancing nervously toward the door. I could hear footsteps approaching. Just as the download completed, I grabbed the flash drive and turned to Daniel. "Let's go." We dashed towards the back exit, adrenaline coursing through our veins. The guards were still searching the main area, and we slipped through the door into the dark alley behind the warehouse. We could hear shouts behind us, and I knew we had to keep moving. As we ran, I could feel the weight of what we had just uncovered. This was the evidence we needed to expose the Eden Project and warn the world. But I also felt a new wave of fear creeping in. What would happen if they caught us? "We need to find a safe place to lay low and get this information out," Daniel panted as we navigated the narrow streets. I nodded, my mind racing with possibilities. We couldn't go to the police, they might be compromised. Instead, we needed to find allies who could help us disseminate the information without putting ourselves in further danger.